Why, hello there. Welcome to day 601 of watching the Elden Ring announcement trailer every day. And joining me for day 601 is the host of the daily Elden Ring update, Mordecai. Hello, Mordecai.
Hey man, thanks for having me.
And before we jump into the topic, I have to ask, is there any Elden Ring news today?
There is no news about Elden Ring today.
As usual. So the topic for today, and probably the most commonly commented on topic before we get into the trailer, is why doesn't From just release a trailer, or why don't they just release anything, an image, some gameplay, literally anything. Why can't they just do that? And I'll throw it to you first on your own thoughts on that.
Well, I think, well, we kind of know the game was slated to be released last year, and then the whole COVID thing probably delayed it a bit, and they probably had some promo material ready to release, and all that got pushed back, and now Bandai Namco's just like not very communicative. From Software is not known to be very communicative. So we're just kind of sitting on this limbo of waiting for news. I think they have stuff ready, but I think they're just waiting on the game to be uh, in a state where they can show it to show something. I can personally wait as long as possible. I don't
Yeah.
know about you.
Yeah. I think basically the same thing. Like, I feel like they had an original timeline. It was going to be released already, so they kickstarted it with the trailer. They had plans in mind. It seems like even as of TGA of 2019, those plans were already changing. And yeah, From Software and Bandai Namco aren't the best at keeping you up to date, but I don't think they're going to double down on an extended timeline by trickling out stuff. It's From Software fans enjoy the fact that their games are like have an attention to detail, and I think From Software may be the same way when it comes to their marketing and to like giving out information. They've always been pretty isolated. Like, they usually just show like the starting areas, so they're not going to want to try to cover like twice as long for some marketing. They're going to want to go with their marketing plans when they're ready, and I think that's why they're not just going to release anything. They want to be in a position where they're ready to show it and they're happy with it. And with the delays, they're just going to push that, because trying to do stuff in COVID's already tough. So if they're just scrambling and trying to figure stuff out, I don't see the point in them doing anything else. And I'm with you. I would rather they wait and then just hit the ground running than just trickle out little bits of information, because I don't think that would be any fun either.
Right. We don't want another situation similar to Cyberpunk where a release date is announced and
Yep.
it's delayed once, twice, three times, and so on.
Yeah.
I mean, this is also on the opposite end of the extreme. It's like no news at all versus like constant promises that are broken. But I think I would personally prefer this.
Yeah, because if they don't really have anything to share, then I'd rather they not try to come up with something. I think they could communicate better than like one tweet every 6 months. But yeah, I think that would just rile people up every time it happens, as it does every time they give the slightest bit of information. There's articles made and everything, and I just don't think they really need to do anything yet, especially if they're not ready. So when it happens, I think they'll do their, like a 6 to 8 month window, and then they'll release the game. I think that's probably their plan, and yeah, I'd rather have that as well than just weird things every 3 to 6 months over the course of 2 years.
Do you think the game's coming out this year?
You know, right now, which is always a moving target, I am really hopeful for like a winter 2021, but they really like releasing games in spring. And the farther we go, because I don't think we're seeing anything before April. All this stuff about the next couple months, I don't think it's going to happen. And I I have a little hope, but I feel like I'm being optimistic by thinking holiday 2021, and I could see them releasing spring 2022 easily.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat as you. With the likes of Jeff Grubb saying we'll hear about it soon
Yeah.
and soon, and we still haven't heard anything.
Yeah.
Um, I guess we'll see, but it's it's likely that it's this year. But with this game, like all the logic can be thrown out the window because you can never truly predict something.
Yeah, exactly. I've been following From Software like Souls releases since Dark Souls 2 came out, and it's nothing like any of those games. So I think, yeah, it's the might as well throw the playbook out the window because it's just different this time around. So
Yeah, especially in this COVID world, like, and having to adjust to all of that.
yeah, exactly. All right, so now hopefully that's answered the many comments I've got about that. That's our stance on it at least. As we said, who knows? But now, are you ready to watch this Elden Ring trailer?
Absolutely. It's been almost a day since the last time I watched it.
Same. All right, let's go.
Were you watching E3 live when this trailer came on?
I was watching it on my phone actually, so I didn't get to see it up on a screen of any good size. But
I couldn't believe it when they were like, and George R. R. Martin is part of it. I was like,
yeah, I had heard the leaks, but it still was weird to actually see it put out officially.
it's funny like reading the replies to the Reddit thread on this video. It's like everyone's like, "Oh, I hope it's coming out in 2020 and we
Yeah,
get news soon."
I know. Ugh.
That which commanded the stars.
I'm really hoping this is like maybe half of like the intro video because I want more of this guy's voice.
The Elden Ring.
Doesn't this guy sound like the sculptor from Sekiro to you?
He does. I do get a bit of that.
I wonder if it's the same voice actor because they're known to use like the same voice actors.
Oh
Don't tell me you don't see
There's the
it.
bit from the concept arts we got recently.
Look up
Yep.
at the sky. It burns.
And the music is just so good in this trailer.
yeah. It's what keeps me going, honestly. If the music wasn't as good, I'm not sure that I would want to watch it as often as I do, which is daily. So,
Yeah.
but I really hope we get more music like along that's so percussive and just more like I want more trumpets, more percussive, just just to mix it up. It will be interesting to see if it, how they differentiate like the musical identity from, like the Dark Souls games and, how they try and make it its own unique thing.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the more anticipated parts for me personally.
Yeah.
I also thought it was interesting how they didn't like have a target year even at the end of the trailer.
Yeah, it does make you wonder, like, because they had a leak in March of 2019 that was talking about George R. R. Martin open world, and it does make you wonder if they didn't feel a little bit of pressure to respond in some official capacity, but if it was a little bit sooner than what they wanted, if it's just been this whole thing has been plagued by, you know, things not following in the timeline that they were hoping for.
Yeah, exactly. And it also interestingly has the old generation consoles there, so
Yeah, yeah.
it's showing how dated this trailer has become.
I know. If they had any idea when it released, I do think it would just be a next gen game. I think as it is, we're likely to cross both generations with just the upgrade, just because I don't think From Software is really technically strong enough to just flip like that. And I think they would capture a larger player base anyways, but that does bring up stuff of like server stuff, like, what you do. I think they're combined. I think they can get the consoles on the same thing, but it does raise complications about it being a cross generation thing, and hopefully it performs well on both. I think everyone's a little more nervous after Cyberpunk, seeing like what big anticipated games do as cross generation games.
Well, I'm not so sure about old gen, but I imagine it'll run similar to how Sekiro runs
Yeah,
on the old generation consoles. And their games aren't like known to be like super
yeah.
demanding.
Yeah, that's the saving grace there, and that's what makes me find up. Like, I'll play it on PC, but if I get it for PS5 too, like, it'll probably be fine. But PS4, it's probably going to be 30 frames per second. Like, I doubt that they're going to make the jump.
Right.
So, but
Yeah. I
hopefully no
mean,
Blight Towns. But we'll see what happens. They're not always. They usually release pretty workable games, but they do have their slowdown.
yeah. Um, with it being open world, that's also another challenging aspect I
Mhm.
never had to deal with before. So I think um, they may have like a longer polishing phase where they try to make sure all that stuff runs properly.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's a bunch of stuff they just haven't really done before. And it doesn't mean the project's in jeopardy. It just means they're sort of pushing the boundaries, especially with that engine. Because that engine is really old at this point. Like, I know they can upgrade it, and they've done some pretty clever things, like up through Sekiro, to sort of
Hmm.
modify their engine. But, it does make me wonder sometimes what sort of like coding shenanigans are involved with using something that they've been using since, I think, Demon Souls. So it's pretty
Yeah,
wild.
it's certainly interesting,
Yeah.
but I'm not really too worried about performance,
Yeah.
personally. I just want to play the game.
Yeah, right. Yeah, like take your time, but also I just want to play the game. Just give me a date and like it'll be fine.
I
Um,
mean, Phil Spencer got to play it quite a bit, as he said, and so it's in a playable state.
yeah, which man, hearing that, I
What a
can't.
lucky man.
Yeah, all you have to do is like be the head of one of the major
Microsoft.
consoles. Yeah.
Yeah.
But do you have a favorite portion of the announcement trailer? Anything that you would like in particular? Like, you like the music, but is there any particular image about the trailer that sort of sticks with you?
Um, well, like I said, when I was watching the E3 trailer live, when it said "A New World" by Miyazaki, I was like, "Oh, here we go!" And then it said George R. R. Martin.
Yeah.
That's like the part that got me really hyped because that
Oh
was
yeah.
around the time Game of Thrones finale had just
Yep.
wrapped up, and with how disappointing that was, I don't want to get too much into that, but
Yeah.
I was like, I'm looking forward to a project written by him because we're never getting the Winds of Winter. Let's be honest.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, when the last book came out, I had no kids. I was in college. Like, it's just wild to think about like when Dance of Dragons came out, like just how much different of a phase I was in my life, and just to think all that's happened and he's still working away. So I will take this as well. And you know, people have their opinions. I think it's generally people are pretty excited, but I think George R. R. Martin is an objective positive for the lore and story of the game. He's handling the mythology. He's a master of making these complicated worlds, and he's just giving From Software something cool to play around in, and then do their cool storytelling and their cool, narratives that they always do, but they just don't have that upfront trying to piece a world together. They get to just sort of play around, and I think that lets everyone put their effort into the thing that they're good at. Not that From's bad at creating mythologies, but I think it's always been how they've presented their stories, not so much that the story themselves are like super complicated. It's just they're very obscured, and I think that's a lot of the fun, is that mystery aspect, but that George R. R. Martin will really bring just his literary prowess and his ability to build out a world and then they can just work off of that source book, which I think is just, it will make for a really good world.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing everyone dissect the parts that George R. R. Martin was involved with, because he's kind of written like a Dungeon Master's Handbook equivalent, is what I think
Yeah.
Miyazaki alluded to.
Yeah,
So that
exactly.
should be really fun as you're progressing through the game, and perhaps we'll see references to his own pieces of works there. I mean, he's known to uh, do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that'll be fun between From Software and George R. R. Martin. Like, they both love some self-referencing. They both like weird trees. They both like
I mean, we've already seen some of that weird trees in the trailer.
yeah, exactly. And in the concept art, it is interesting, and I mentioned in a previous video, the concept art was so big on the weird tree stuff, and
Hmm.
like to the part where like the blacksmith or tree fairy or whatever you want to call them, like they were like rooted into the ground, and it seems like they either obscured or pulled away that imagery, and I don't know why, but it'll be interesting just to compare that versus when we see the final product and see if it gives us any clues into development or just maybe where they were at the time. But yeah, it looks like tons of weird tree stuff. They both love dragons, so I'm sure there'll be plenty of all that shit.
It's like it's a year and a half later since that trailer, and it's sort of like a fever dream how like my favorite gaming developers and my favorite fiction writer just working together.
Hmm.
It's kind of like a match made in heaven.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think it'll be a really weird moment, assuming that this trailer is the opening, which I think I'm like, obviously it's speculation, but I feel very strongly that this is an edited, cut up version of the opening. It's going to
Hmm.
be really weird when I start watching that and then it does something different. Just because, like you said, you spent a year and a half, you sort of like, it is like a fever dream. You're just like, so when the real thing comes, it's just going to be very surreal, being like, oh, there's more now. Like, there's more
Yeah, you're
information.
gonna be like, there's another trailer I can watch every day other than this one.
Yeah, yeah, who knows? Man, I don't know if I'll alternate, I don't know what, but I know we're both looking forward to actually having some information to dig into. So
Yeah, absolutely.
we'll see. Maybe sometime this year, maybe. Who knows? I'm done making bets after the last two TGAs. I've just decided I just look like a fool every time I get my hopes up. So
Yeah, and I was counting down every day until TGA, and then
yeah, it happens. I mean, last TGA 2019, I started up the Elden Ring lore website thinking, okay, it's gonna pop off now, and I can start. And yeah, I'm just paying hosting for that thing, and it's a nice reminder to maybe just wait a minute.
I'm sure you're looking forward to actually adding content there once
Oh
we.
yeah, yeah. I was like, maybe I'll add stuff as it goes, and I have to brush up on it. But really, I have that set up once the game releases, and it's just this like reminder. So I just ignore it for now. I'm like, okay, you can sit over there, and when there's actually lore, I'll come back to you. But for now, you just make me sad. But thank you for joining me to watch this trailer, day 601, and yeah, it's the music still slaps, still as good as the first time, at least in my opinion. And yeah, so if people want to find you, where can they find you at on the internet?
Um, I'm Elden Ring News on YouTube and at Elden Ring Update on Twitter.
Yeah, it's a pro follow, especially if you are able to live your life and not be obsessed with Elden Ring every day like I am. It's nice to have someone else tell you if there's information. So I highly recommend checking that out. And once again, thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, dude.
Yeah, and everyone else, stay tuned for tomorrow's episode. Thank you.